Good morning, church. Today we'll look at the second part of Psalm 23, verse 3. You may have to listen to this input more than once to let it settle in your understanding. Psalm 23, 3. He restores my soul. He guides me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yesterday I touched on He restores my soul. Today I look at the words, He guides me in the paths of righteousness. The word for righteousness means that which is altogether just and right. It refers to living right in relationship to God, spiritually, naturally, morally, and legally. We tend in these modern times to understand righteousness to mean uprightness in the sense of an adherence or conformity to an established norm. But for biblical authors, righteousness is the fulfillment of the terms of a covenant between God and a person or God and his people. Righteousness is what God does in fulfillment of the terms of the covenant that God established with the chosen people. Because God had chosen Israel, and Israel had entered into a covenantal relationship with God, the nation had the responsibility of fulfilling the terms of the covenant. New Testament authors show that they understood the word righteousness in terms of Old Testament thinking about covenantal relations. Human righteousness in the New Testament is absolute faith in and commitment to God. The one who in faith gives himself to doing God's will is righteous, doing righteousness and reckoned righteous by God. We see that in James 2:23. It says, Abraham believed God, and God counted him as righteous because of his faith. He was even called the friend of God. So with that in mind, we have a better understanding of what the Good Shepherd restores us to. We are restored to a right standing before God and restored to a right relationship with God. The reality is that when I follow the Good Shepherd closely, listening to his voice and following his directions, my life is abundant, fulfilling, and joyful. But as I quit following the shepherd in some area of my life and wander off those paths, I lose out on abundant life and I get exhausted. All that maneuvering, hiding from God, and trying to cover up our wrongdoing drains us spiritually and emotionally. Sin is a tiring business. It wears you out. Often the problem is that we frequently are so busy that we don't even recognize that we've wandered off the path and need restoration. Now, the Good Shepherd does not want us to be out of relationship with him, and he'll not leave us in that condition. And so he strives to bring us around to the place where we recognize we're out of relationship with him and we desire to reconnect with him. Note that the psalmist says, he guides me in the paths of righteousness. The initiative for restoration comes from the Good Shepherd. And this is echoed in John's Gospel, in John 10, verses 3 to 4. It says this, the gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them, and they follow him because they know his voice. In David's lifetime and in Jesus' day, the shepherd never drove his sheep. He led them. The shepherd was with his sheep day after day, and they knew him. They knew his voice, and therefore they followed him. Sheep will follow their own shepherd. That is the way you can tell the one to whom the sheep belong. Because we are unable to right ourselves without the help of the shepherd, we need to turn to him for help. So while only the shepherd can restore me, I have to choose to cooperate with his work in order to benefit from it. But once he has restored me to those right paths, I need to and have to make the choice to remain there and live there. The good news is that if and when I fail, I can be restored back to righteousness by the Good Shepherd who gave his life to save me. Yes, he guides me in the paths of righteousness. It's his glorious work in my life and in your life. Have a wonderful day. God bless you.